welcome back to another episode of the Italian Property Lawyers Podcast. I'm your host, Attorney Luca, and today we have a special episode in store for you. We'll be diving into a heartwarming success story that showcases the dedication and expertise of the team here at Italian Property Lawyers. Joining me today is our client, Evialina Yakimovich, who recently fulfilled her dream of buying a house in Liguria. Evi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Luca. I'm happy to be here and share my experience with you today.
We're equally excited to have you. Let's start from the beginning, Evi. Could you tell our listeners what inspired you to purchase a property in Italy?
Yeah, it was a combination of different things. So I think first off, every time I visited Italy with my partner, we just fell more and more in love with it. So because of the historic cities, the really beautiful culture, of course, the cuisine, and also the people and connections we built over time, specifically to the region where we bought the house. And from second perspective, it was also a really affordable decision for us. So we had previously considered buying a house in Germany, but just in terms of what we can get with value compared to the houses we were looking at in Germany, there was just so much more to choose from in Italy, first off. And because we specifically wanted to renovate a house, we just saw so much more potential there with what we can do. I think there's a really sort of also unique approach and quality of life in Italy. And so I really started to feel at home there. And that's why we got the inspiration to buy a house there rather than in Germany or in the US.
I see. And why in the beautiful area of Liguria?
Yeah, so we got a house in Valpenavere, which is a specific part of Liguria, at first because we're rock climbers, and that's a region really well known for rock climbing. But even though that's the original reason why we went there and why we fell in love with it, we also, on our off days from climbing, had fun exploring different villages in the valley, different cities along the coast, going swimming in the sea, and visiting nice restaurants, trying nice wines. And of course, over time, we built a really close connection to some of the people who are living there, both Italians and non-Italians. So it really started to feel like a second home for us.
Can you describe the moment you first saw your house?
Yeah, so there's actually a little bit of a background story here. When we saw the listing originally on Idealista, and we figured, okay, the next trip out, we're going to contact the sellers and see the house in person. And when we tried to call a couple of times when we were there, no one picked up. But it's a small enough village that we figured, okay, maybe the Airbnb host actually knows them or knows someone who knows them. And that was the case. So he connected us to the sellers and actually came there with us in the first meeting to help translate. And in the end, we actually had a laugh about the fact that the sellers saw this random German phone number and they didn't know if it was spam or whoever it was calling them. So that, we got very lucky in the situation, but it goes to show that it might be a little bit difficult connecting to the sellers if you don't already know someone there or go in person. But in any case, they ended up being really kind and accommodating people. We grew a close relationship with them over time, and they were really helpful in the process as well. And when we saw the house, what really attracted us or what really captured our hearts was the view from the second terrace. So when you go up to the second terrace of the house, you have this 360-degree view of the valley, which is just breathtaking. So actually, words wouldn't do it justice if I were to describe it right now. And then, the house was in pretty good condition. So there's still a lot of work to be done on it, but it felt pretty manageable, especially since this is our first house that we're renovating together with my partner. And the third reason was, of course, the good impression that the sellers made for us on the end. So we felt really comfortable around them. So it was really the location, the condition of the house, its special feature with the second view on the terrace, and also the good impression that we had from the people selling in the house.
It sounds really nice. Now, when you decided to take a big step, what were some of the challenges or concerns you faced as a foreigner looking to purchase property in Italy?
Yeah, I was really concerned about any sort of like local customs or regulations when it comes to buying a house in Italy and the transfer of property. So before I reached out to you, I had already started doing my own research on different websites and blogs just to get a sense of what the process looked like. And I think that gave me a good background experience or sort of foundation to jump from. But in the end, that still didn't feel like enough. So I saw some of the risks that were involved, and I figured it's better to be safe than sorry. So that's when I started looking for professional help and got acquainted with Italian property lawyers.
Well, we're honored that you choose us to be a part of your journey. Would you mind to share with us how you first came into contact with Italian property lawyers and what your initial impressions were?
Yeah, so I found your website and I read through the different testimonials and services that you offer. And what I specifically liked is that you're working with foreigners who want to buy a property in Italy. And then after our first consultation, I got a really good impression of you. So you were really knowledgeable. You really assured us about like different sort of questions or concerns that we had run into when we were doing our own research on how this process worked. And you were able to answer all of our questions. And so that made us feel like we were really good hands with you.
I'm glad to hear that, of course. Our goal is to make the process as smooth as possible for our clients. And we do believe in providing tailored solutions for our clients. Now, can you walk us through your experience of working with us from the beginning of your property search to the final purchase?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a little bit of a unique situation in that when we came to you, we already were between a couple of properties. And I think what was really helpful is that you did provide us really with honest feedback. And in the end helped us make a decision about the property where we actually ran into the least complications, or actually, I mean, in our case, luckily, no complications at all. And so even though it took us a little bit longer to get to that decision, I really appreciated that you were patient during that time and that you gave honest feedback. So it really showed me that, okay, with Italian property lawyers, they're looking out for their clients. So you're not just offering the advice that's the most convenient or that'll get whichever deal done faster. You're offering really genuine advice and looking out for our best interest. So I really appreciated that you were able to provide us with sound advice on which property to go with in the end, even though we maybe knew in our gut. And in the end, we didn't run into any issues during the process where we were signing the deed at the notary. And so, yeah, we're really happy we went with you in the end.
It's fantastic to hear that our team was able to cater to your needs effectively. Well, how did the process unfold after you identified the property you were interested in?
Yeah, so I think also because we had a pretty unique relationship to the sellers, we did the negotiations directly ourselves, but I know that's a service that you offer, and I would typically recommend doing this. We just had a really good relationship with them, so it was pretty easy to come to a price that was fair on both ends and that both parties were happy with. But in any case, we definitely still needed your help with all the paperwork because there's always the risk that, for example, there's liens on the property, or I don't know, they had previously done some sort of renovation or construction on the house that wasn't approved. And there's other pitfalls that we could have run into. So it was really important that we had someone double checking all of these things and making sure everything correct. And so you were able to do that for us in the end. Yeah.
Maybe you remember I told you many times that due diligence is really a crucial step in any property purchase. And I'm really delighted to hear that our team was able to assist you effectively in this regard. Can you share some insights about the negotiation and paperwork involved in the process? You know, we have a very strong bureaucracy here, so maybe you struggle a bit.
Yeah, so you were really efficient with it, and you were really flexible and, let's say, available around the clock when we had any questions around different things. And of course, we avoided the whole language barrier. So we had just started to learn a little bit of Italian, but definitely did not speak enough Italian, or I mean, neither one of us are from there to really know the different sort of customs and rules. And so you were able to bridge that gap for us. And besides just translating the documents, you were also able to provide additional background information. So if we didn't understand why something was working a certain way, or we thought something was missing, or we just wanted to understand something a little bit better, you were able to explain that and provide that sort of assurance to us. So that was something that was incredibly helpful to us and important to the process.
It's wonderful to know that our comprehensive approach to legal services, including translations, helped facilitate a seamless experience for you. Now, Evie, could you share with our listeners the moment you finally fulfilled your dream of owning a home in Liguria? I remember it.
Yeah, of course it was. We had a lot of gratitude in that moment. It was a very happy moment for us. I mean, it was a couple years in the making for us, but only because we were kind of like casually looking at properties, not really 100% sure if and when we were going to go for it. But when we did, in the end, you were also there to make sure that all the contracts were fulfilled, the transfer of property went smoothly, and taking sort of any sort of stress or risk out of that part of the process. And of course, it's a good feeling when you step into that house for the first time as its owner, and I'll never forget that feeling.
That's really nice, of course. Speaking of the future, what do you have in store for your beautiful property in Liguria?
Yeah, so in the near future, right now we are submitting the applications for the internal and external works, because you need to get approval on certain types of renovations that you would like to make on a house in Italy. And it was actually through you and the sellers that we got in touch with the surveyor who is helping us do that right now. And then once we plan on completing the house, we want to live there part of the time, and the other part of the time share it with friends and family, and perhaps rent it out to other climbers or people who want to visit the valley. And hopefully they get as good of an experience as we did there and fall in love with it as we did.
Well, your story is truly inspiring, Evie. Finally, looking back on your journey with Italian property lawyers, do you have any advice for our listeners who might be considering purchasing property in Italy?
Yeah, I would say if you're in the position to really take your time with the property search, and to enjoy the process. So I know that's a part where eventually it can feel like, yeah, I've been looking long enough. When will I find the perfect match? So at some point you will get there, and it's not worth stressing about. It's a part of the process that you should actually really love and look back on favorably. And working with Italian property lawyers was a huge benefit to us, because in the end there are certain stress or risks that you can come across during the process, and understanding the local customs and the regulations and all the paperwork, and making sure everything is happening fairly without any sort of surprises. And you were there to handle that part of it, and I felt really assured about that. So in the end, you took away all the potential stressors and allowed us to really enjoy the process, and we're grateful for that.
Well, thank you, Evie, for sharing your journey with us. Your experience is a testament to the mission of Italian property lawyers, to help turn dreams into reality for clients like you. That concludes today's episode of the Italian Property Lawyers podcast. A huge thank you to Evialina Yakimovich for joining us and sharing her success story. If you're considering purchasing property in Italy, remember that the team at Italian Property Lawyers is here to guide you every step of the way. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more enlightening conversation and success stories. Until next time, ciao. Ciao Evi, grazie.
Ciao, grazie.